Hi folks, so it's Shabazz from Freedom Expeditions. Welcome to another edition of the Freedom Talks. So today we're up on Ilkley Moor. We're on the south side of the moor, walking towards the 12 Apostles and Cow and Calf. You can see the day, it's not sunny at all. There is a bit of wind around, so we're going to try and speak up so you can hear us, and hopefully it'll work. And as ever, I've always said at the beginning of these talks that we're not professionals, we're not experts in our fields in terms of mental health and all this sort of stuff. We're just sharing a story with you, and hopefully something within that story connects with you. You can empathise with something, or it allows you to see something about your own life in a different way, or somebody else's life that's close to you. That said, today we do have an expert, and I'm going to let him introduce himself. So I'm just going to pan the camera around. There he is.
Hi there guys. My name's Idris Watts and I'm based in West Yorkshire, and I am, I suppose I have a pastoral role in the community here in West Yorkshire, and I teach adult education in Arabic language, Islamic studies, and I'm also provide counselling and therapy in the community, locally and online.
So, as ever with these sorts of talks, we're talking about anything that you want to talk about. This conversation is definitely led by yourself, but it's related to the outdoors. So, up on Ilkley Moor, first thing that comes to my mind, or that I'm feeling in my own body, is the weather. It's not sunny. I was out on Kinder a few days ago, at the beginning of the week. I was out on Old Man of Coniston yesterday. Fantastic weather. The first time I went out on Kinder, I got a heat stroke, which has never happened to me before. Must be lockdown. And yesterday on Old Man, we were absolutely fine, but it was about 24-25 degrees, a blisteringly hot day. So what's it feel like when you come out into a place like this and it's this sort of weather? And I think it's absolutely fantastic. I prefer this sort of weather, to be honest. I'm in a t-shirt, you can see, and Idris is in a jacket. And I'm in shorts as well. But this is the sort of thing that I absolutely love. So Idris, could I ask you, you mentioned a number of things that you do, but one of them is counselling.
Yeah.
So could you talk a little bit about what that counselling is, and what sort of issues you've come across, and is any of that relatable to the outdoors in terms of senses, the touch, smell, hearing, so on and so forth, and experiences that people have had in the outdoors?
I think, where would I go with this? I think when I look at mental health or just general well-being, one of the major themes that I find with clients and myself as well is a sense of space, a sense of ability to be able to move in your life. And that, I don't mean literally physically necessarily, that can be psychologically, that could be spiritually, that could be emotionally, but the most important thing, that you feel a sense of spaciousness and you feel a sense of something bigger than you. And I think that's been really, that's really hit home in the lockdown period for myself, because I realised how much I'm actually in the house, in quarantine and outside of quarantine, but because I was actually constricted to the house, all my work was at home, and I found it really, really difficult to switch off from all the tasks I've got to do. And so I started to suffer from quite a lot of anxiety at that point, and I was like, oh my god, I thought I got over all my stuff. I thought I no longer struggled with this, but it came back, and what was really powerful for me was that I realised that it was a very simple solution for me at that point, for myself personally, was that I just needed to get out every day and feel some sense of space. And so we're quite blessed in Keighley, where I'm based, because we have a lot of countryside within 5 minutes of us. So I'll go out there, me and my wife, and we go for a walk, talk, and just feel this sense of space. And I felt a lot better. And so for me, just doing this, feeling this sense of space, walking and feeling the sky, sensing the sky, sensing that you are, sense of space outside of you, it creates a sense of space inside of you. And really feeling that, so that, because a lot of the problems that happen is when people are going through their struggles, they become constricted. And when we become constricted, that creates muscle tension, that has a knock-on effect on your emotional sense. You feel constricted emotionally, you feel constricted psychologically and spiritually. And so recognizing that by changing your environment, it has a knock-on impact, it has a knock-on effect on all the levels of your being. And to really understand that when you're going out, what you're doing as well. And so for me, doing this is really important. So when Shabazz actually contacted me, this is what I was looking to reach out this week, because I'm off at the moment, and I'm quite an introvert. I'm naturally introverted. It's very easy for me to get sort of preoccupied with reading and just studying. And but now, due to the years I've been working in mental health, I realise the importance of being outside, but also being in contact with other human beings.
Yeah, I find, having spoken to you over the last few years about this, what you're doing is absolutely fascinating, and it's helped me understand a lot more of what I'm seeing with my own clients.
Right.
And with myself. So one of the things I've always said is, when you're walking with clients and you're walking up a mountain, when you start walking, you can have a conversation with people. But if you have that same conversation with people an hour later, after they've walked up a side of Snowdon or Ben Nevis or whatever it might be, that same conversation, same question, can lead to a much deeper insight into people's lives. And I do it as well. We're all willing to give away more of what's happened to us in the past to a complete stranger.
Right. Yeah.
We're more willing to say things that if I met the person for the first time, I'd never tell them about what happened to me in my previous childhood or this and that, whatever it might be. But after an hour or so, more willing to have that conversation.
Yeah.
And I've never understood, I never understood why that was the case. What was going on? Is it simply because they're knackered and all their inhibitions are fallen?
Yeah.
And it might be as simple as that. I don't know.
Well, I think there's two things there. One thing you said is that you're speaking to a stranger, which is incredibly important for people that are going through struggles, because naturally with a stranger there's less propensity for there to be judgment, because this person is not involved in your life, and you're making the assumption that they're not going to really, even if they were to share it, it probably wouldn't get back to the people in your life. So you'll find people open up to their hairdressers, people open up to their someone they go to for a massage. So that's one aspect, I think, is that, like you were mentioning, being with a stranger is it's really important to get outside of your social circles. Relating to that, I remember I was in Keighley for many years initially, and I was mainly involved with the Pakistani community, and I started to feel really constricted, and I didn't know why this was the reason for it, but it hit home for me one day. I went into a hairdresser's, and there's all these old white men sitting there waiting for their haircut, and I thought, oh my god, I feel like they're going to think like I'm a terrorist or something, or I won't be able to hold a conversation with these people. And I said, hang on a minute, I'm white. And it really struck home that I got to get out. This is, I'm limiting myself in my interactions with people. And then when I started getting involved more in therapy and having to engage with people from all different backgrounds, it was liberating for me.
Morning. Morning, guys.
Morning. And I think that's really important, that you need to expand your social circles and challenge yourself by meeting different people, and you'll be pleasantly surprised what impact that has on your mental health just by learning to engage with different people.
Well, like I said, I was on the Old Man of Coniston yesterday, and I met somebody who I've kind of known only on Facebook
Right.
for the past 4 years, and we met for the first time in person, and I'm sure that had something to do with what happened afterwards with my behaviour.
Right.
And I think also because I'd not been out for a while. That was my first proper mountain in the UK since March. You know what a red setter is? Dog. I'm sure some people who are watching know what that is. It's a bit bonkers, and it kind of goes off in different directions and runs all over the place.
Right.
After the filming that we did yesterday, that's what I did. So there's 3 of us walking around these paths, and then I see a crag somewhere, a buttress sticking out, and I've just run off and start climbing it. I was so happy, it was unbelievable.
Wow.
It was like that, and I think meeting Keith for the first time and talking with him, and it's somebody who I didn't know, so I was a little bit of anxiety about how is this conversation going to go, because I don't know the person, I don't want to offend them, but it's also an unedited talk. You know, we need to be able to speak openly and freely, and it went fantastic.
Right.
Really, really good. And I think, off camera as well, we spoke about some things which we didn't want on camera, and it's always the case when when people meet. There are things that you're willing to say in front of people, especially when you know it's being filmed, and there are things you don't want to say but you're willing to say to that person because you're out in the wild, you're out on a mountain. And even though there's people around you, you don't kind of feel like everybody's listening. But you want to be able to say something, even though they are, But you want to be able to say something and just get it off your chest. And that's how I felt yesterday. That was quite amazing.
And that relates back to this sense of space, because you're walking in a feeling space. There's a number of factors, it's not simply that, but that's one aspect, I think, is that you feel like you can open up because there's a space to hold it.
Yeah, and I think the other factor for me is the actual elements, because I prefer to walk in rain, wind, fog, more than I do, and especially winter. Winter I absolutely adore, more than summer. Summer's fantastic because you get all the views, but all you get is this, for me, all I feel is this over kind of thing of heat, and just my mind's shriveling. But when you're out in, especially winter, and the elements are just battering you, there's a direct connection when the rain hits your skin.
Well, it brings an aliveness, doesn't it, I think, as well.
That's it, yes.
Because we talk about, in the Wim Hof method, if people familiar with Wim Hof, he's likes exposing people to extreme cold temperatures. But what's interesting about cold water, so one thing he recommends people do, they go into a shower, and I do this regularly, is in the shower, I start with hot because I love my hot showers, and then what I would do is, after I got comfortable, I slowly but surely reduce the temperature of the shower, and I assess.
Just wait here for a bit.
And I assess how my body's reacting to that drop in temperature.
Right.
It's really important you do that, because if you go straight to freezing cold, it can shock the system too much.
Okay.
So what you're doing is you're building up your capacity for your threshold and your resilience for challenge. So your body slowly starts to adapt, and then what you want to wait is that you will get that point where you go like this, because the cold, what it does, it really stimulates what we call the longest nerve in your body, the vagus nerve, which some people call the soul nerve. It connects your brain to all your viscera. And when it goes,
what's your viscera?
The viscera meaning your organs, so your lungs, your heart, your stomach, and so it connects all those things. So as soon as it feels that cold it sort of it needs to adapt to that.
Okay.
So you'll feel everyone's had this experience. Imagine you suddenly this.
Yeah.
Oh my God! So what it is your temperature, basically your body's temperature saying, I need to regulate to this shift. And then when you can be okay with that, suddenly there's this sort of exhilaration you feel, and you feel, and you feel this inner warmth in your body as well.
There are lots of people who I know on Facebook, I've never met them, who go wild swimming.
Yeah, well that's Wim Hof's, that's
Right,
part of his thing.
okay,
It's becoming more and more popular, that.
right.
But my own personal opinion, especially, I've noticed some of my clients that have been into Wim Hof, you have to be careful with that stuff.
Okay.
Because if you jump straight into cold water and you're of a sensitive disposition, what happens is you go into a shutdown response, and you don't know how to deal with it. So it's really important. I encourage people to do it from a very sort of, so I would
You're
encourage.
building up to it.
Yeah, so I'd like put my feet in the lake,
Yes.
and just feel what that feels like, and it's like a gradual build up until you feel this is manageable. And what that does is it builds up your capacity to deal with not just now. Obviously, this is dealing with your resilience to temperature change, but it has a knock-on effect on your emotional capacity to hold difficult emotions, and psychological, in order to be challenged by ideas, and spiritually as well. All these things have a relation, they interrelate with one another.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things. We've just got to pop through this gate, and I'm going to... Right, I think we just cut off there for a moment because I pressed the wrong button. So, I'm just going to swap it to another hand. Right. Yeah, so one of the things that happens for me when I'm out is if I've got particular worries, the worries recently, actually over the last couple of years, have started to manifest themselves as like a tightness in the stomach. And kind of feeling, oh my God, this is actually quite hurting now. And the thing that came to my mind was IBS.
Right, yeah.
And I'm thinking, right, I need to just get out. And that's why yesterday was so good, because I was able to get out and just run and feel the sun and climb and touch the rock. And suddenly, whatever anxiety I had just dripped away. Over the day, it just dripped away. I didn't even notice. It wasn't until I got back home last night and I got up this morning and I was like, right, ready for another day. Now, those things that caused anxiety in the first place, they're still there, but they don't have the same hold on me. It's not, I'm not kind of feeling constricted by it anymore. And I think that goes back to what you're talking about, space. The wind is picking up now, guys, so hopefully you can still hear us. But it's space, but also that direct, it's like the wind's blowing now.
And you're feeling it in your senses. You can't help but be present with your senses.
Exactly, I'm in my body at the moment. I can feel it. I can feel the wind hitting me. And it's wonderful. Rather than sitting at home on a couch in front of a TV. Now, I'm not saying that you should never do that, but my God, the less I can do that, the better.
But the more tools you have, isn't it? So sometimes we need to zone out, sometimes we need to get out. So it's really important people develop a toolkit in order to deal with the challenges and struggles.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And like what you just said there is really important, because it's really, I had a client contact me and they were travelling and they said, I don't know what's wrong with me, but I'm peeing constantly and I know I'm going on a flight.
Right.
What is this? And I said to him, look, this is quite normal. Your body knows that it's going on something that's challenging to it. Like, it's not normal to fly in the air at those speeds. Your body's aware this is going to happen, and you're going by yourself this time as well, and they've never been travelling by themselves. And I said, you've got to, the biggest problem we have in the modern age is we separate our mind from our body and we try to rationalise everything. And in the end, we don't need to rationalise. And I gave him an example. I said, I went to the Shetland Islands recently and we were on a ferry, and this ferry rides at 12 hours, up to 14 sometimes. And people brought their dogs, and the dogs, even there was these big, like, tough dogs, they were all whimpering.
Right. Okay.
And it really made me reflect. It's like we need to look at our bodies. I find it a helpful analogy. We look at our bodies like animals that we've got to treat and take care of.
Yeah.
And when your body's physiologically reacting like that, it's normal, because a dog's thinking, I'm on this ship, I'm not used to this experience, I'm on this massive ocean and I don't feel comfortable. And so what do you do to that dog? You just calm it.
Yeah.
You don't say you don't need to feel like this, or what's wrong with you. That's what we do to our bodies.
Yeah. I'm just going to turn the camera around. Morning.
Morning.
So we don't get the walkers in, just for privacy. Right. Okay.
And that was a real shift for him when he realised, like, if you can look at your body like an animal, like you'd never do that to a dog. You wouldn't just like, well, get on with it.
Yeah.
Or a horse. I think a dog's a better analogy, because people are very, have a quite affectionate relationship with their dogs, and
Yes.
a lot of people do have dogs. So if you see that dog whimpering, you don't just, push it. You slow down.
Yes.
And you stroke it. Oh, he said, so I need to stroke my body. And I went, metaphorically, yes. I said, you don't necessarily, but even though that can have an impact, someone just doing this to their chest or in their tummy, like Shabazz was mentioning.
Yes.
It's just sitting and accepting this is happening. When we say accepting, it's just acknowledging it's there, and we can't move on until we bring some awareness to it, and we just accept it is there. And we obviously don't want it to be there, but in order to change that, we need to just be with it. And so when Shabazz was feeling that, and the stomach's very common for you to start to feel things in the stomach with that person. It's very, like, when we go into a sympathetic state, and a sympathetic state is what we call fight and flight, people are more familiar with, an activated state.
Yes.
It's very normal for you to want to go to the bathroom, because if you're running away from a tiger, you need to get rid of all the load in your body. So when we go to fear responses, it's quite natural for people to start going to the bathroom excessively. And so I just explained that to him, and it made sense to him. And that shift, that dynamic of seeing your body like that, I'm going to sit with these sensations and just tend to them. And when I say tend to them, it's just bringing your mind to it and say, what's there?
Yeah.
And what generally happens is that as you pay attention to it without wanting to change it, it starts to shift. So your stomach might start groaning, and that means it's actually moving into a parasympathetic state, which is the rest and digest, the more relaxed state.
Yes.
When we hear groaning, it's like the stomach's opening up, and it's moving into, and there's the constrictions sort of releasing. And so the more we pay attention to these sensations in our body, the more likely we'll be able to regulate them and know how to cope with them. And we won't turn to, because what we often do in the modern world is we turn to externalities to solve this situation. Then we take paracetamol, we eat something, we watch something. Even Shabazz, like getting out, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm saying that's. But at first, before you do something, I say, just take a moment.
Yeah.
And then the second point that came up to me, which Shabazz did, was he went out, and then he connected to nature, and that had a shift on your sense of being.
Yeah.
But also, an added thing you can do there is really get a sense of that, so that when you're not able to do that, you can sit and do an imaginary exercise of what that feels like in your senses. So I'm in the office, I obviously can't, I'm feeling uncomfortable, I can't suddenly just run out the office and go for a walk. But what you can do is, what was it like when I was there?
Yeah.
What was the senses, like the smells, the feeling on the face? What was the tastes I was experiencing? So all the external senses, and what was I internally sensing? The amazing thing about imagination is that your body, it doesn't know what's real and what's not real. So you'll probably notice that with animals, my cat, she came into our room, and we've got this fluffy lion toy, and it became really panic stricken.
Right.
It thought it was like a real lion or a cat.
Yeah.
And it couldn't differentiate between something, and you'll see that with little children as well, they can't differentiate between what's not real and what's real.
Yes.
And we see this in movies. We watch a movie, obviously that movie's not a reality.
Morning.
With that,
I'm just going to swap hands.
that movie is not a reality, but it's your body experiences it like a reality. So if there's a scene of suspense, you start to feel that in your body.
Yeah, well, that's part of the marketing, isn't it, of the film industry, which is experience movies in real, it actually affects you and it actually changes your emotions, and that's what is considered the way forward for having a better movie experience. That's what I find interesting about the whole marketing industry. I'm not an expert in marketing, by the way, okay, so this is all I've noticed, okay, and this is what noticing, observing certain things and then basing my idea on what I'm seeing, which is marketing and the industry is very good at knowing how the body works and how the mind works.
Emotions, definitely.
And the emotions, absolutely. And on the one hand, they'll tell you it's all rubbish, as long as it makes them money. With the other hand, they'll tell you it's all real, but they'll give it to you in a certain way where you don't even realize sometimes that you're being manipulated. You don't need to go out and buy this or buy that, you just want it. So if you take a moment and reflect on what is need and what is want, maybe we wouldn't buy so many things. Maybe we would repair more things rather than getting rid of them. I don't know, it's just a thought.
I thought something that came up to me that was interesting is, as we've obviously been walking, we've had people come by and they're engaging with us.
Yes.
And I noticed that when I noticed that more when I go up to see my parents, my mum and my stepdad in the lakes. People more likely to engage you on the street.
Okay.
And so when you get out in...
What are you saying? Are you saying they're better than the people of Yorkshire? Be very careful what you say on camera.
It's interesting when we get out into nature, we're more open to engage.
Yes.
It could be just a simple hello, but you'll notice we never do that usually in town.
No.
The only time it happened in town for me, it was became very apparent for me, was when we had that winter where it was so icy, people were literally having to crawl across the street at the road.
Okay.
And everyone was asking after everyone, because we're in touch with, we're in survival now.
Yeah.
We're in our elements, like our natural elements. People engage with their humanity.
Yes. And that's when people use terms like communities coming together. There are no divides. When we had the floods, for example, in the lakes a couple of years ago.
And we had them in Keighley
as well. Yeah, in York and in Leeds and Bradford. And what happened was people came together. So it wasn't about suddenly all these discussions around problem communities not getting on with each other, communities fighting. Suddenly, all of that disappeared because everybody banded together to help each other. And the media, something else I noticed, was very reluctant in the beginning to talk about that.
All right.
And it wasn't until people themselves, so I started seeing posts from people who are living in the Lake District. They're from white communities, their families go back generations and some of them don't, and they're now tweeting and posting on Instagram and Facebook and other online stuff about how there's Muslim communities, Sikh communities coming up from the big cities to help, to provide food, to provide manpower, to provide woman power, to provide whatever aid that those communities need. And they loved it. And it brought people closer together. And in the end, the media did report on that and tell those stories. But what happened to all the discussions around, immigrants, refugees, these people are this, Muslims are all terrorists and so on and so forth. Suddenly it all disappeared because we had a common goal.
Yeah.
We had a common, disaster that happened. And as you say, we're in survival mode now, aren't we?
Yeah.
When you're not in survival mode, it is, we tend to turn on each other.
Yeah, because we've got nothing else to do.
Yeah.
It's like a lot of these discussions we have, like you were just mentioning, are like sort of first world luxuries to have even these problems, because in other countries, when you're just having to dealing with the necessities of life,
Yes.
I was even reflecting, obviously it's a bit of a controversial topic, about vegetarianism.
Oh,
Yeah,
careful.
I was watching this show on National Geographic called Primal Survivor.
Right.
I can't remember his Hadil. I don't know if you.
I've not seen it, no.
Yeah, he's an American guy, and he goes to all these primitive cultures,
Right.
and he basically tries to assimilate into their tribe for 2 weeks.
Okay.
And he's got to go on some journey that they have to usually make.
Okay. Right.
And he learns all their skills. And I was just reflecting, because he has to live off the land.
Right.
There is no. He's having to eat things like larvae
Oh wow.
just
Right.
to
Okay.
survive. I was
Yes.
thinking, when you're in the survival mode, and I understand, I was a vegetarian for many years, but when you're in survival, you don't even have that luxury to think, am I a vegetarian or not a vegetarian?
You mean you're not a vegetarian anymore?
No.
Ah, we're going for a kebab.
You have to deal with, like, you realise your next meal, you need protein. He was always speaking about protein, and he was like, where am I getting this protein? Because my body now, and he was really in tune with his body. It's like, I can feel the water levels. I need to drink something.
Okay.
I need to eat something, and I need specifically to eat something so I can get through this day, or I won't survive.
Yes.
And I found that really interesting. The reflection is that you're just having to deal with what's in front of you. You don't really have these sort of, well, am I this, am I that? You're just dealing with what is as your life.
Yes.
I
that's
found that
very
really
interesting.
fascinating.
That is interesting. Actually. Morning. Morning. Yeah. Okay. So. Right. I think it's coming to a bit of a natural end there. Unless there's anything else that you want to talk about.
No, nothing really else comes to mind.
Okay. I think, well, once again, thank you for watching, and private message, comment on the video when it goes up on YouTube, whatever you want to do. If you want to be involved in a future Freedom Talk, just get in touch with me, and we'll set something up. Can be anywhere in the country. But the reason why I started doing these was, initially I wanted to set up some sort of a project working around mental health, with especially younger people, in conjunction with the outdoors. And it's all kind of come to a bit of a stop because of COVID. So I thought, in the meantime, let's just have these discussions, because there's a wealth of information and knowledge out there that people possess. And sometimes people don't realise that they possess that knowledge, information, expertise, whatever it might be. And I think it's really, really important to share that with as many people as possible. So on that, I do like social media platforms, because just for that point, they can spread information. What you do with that information is a different thing. But it's an opportunity to talk, it's an opportunity to learn, it's an opportunity to air something that has been bugging you, or subjects that you feel are difficult to speak about, and that's why these talks are unedited. And I want to thank Idris for coming on this walk. It's as he alluded to earlier, he's not an easy person to get hold of, but
You're lucky you got me up when I'm on
yeah.
a break.
But the more we can do these, I think, the better. So we've just come up to the 12 Apostles, and
There's some significance to this.
yeah, so we're going to stop it there. Thanks for watching, folks. Bye.
Take care.